Hello everyone, welcome back. This is the second video in our Woodsongs video series on musicianship. Musicianship. Hello everyone, I'm Dennis Burns from Woodsongs, and welcome to our second video in our series called Musicianship. And this video will be called Half Steps and Whole Steps, understanding what they are. The first video was called the musical alphabet, so make sure you go through that one, make sure you're comfortable with that information before you go on to this one. It is now March 20th of 2020. It's a cold, snowy day here in Boulder. So everybody's sort of hunkered down, so it might be a good time to learn some music theory. So what is a half step? Very simply, a half step is movement on a stringed fretted instrument by one fret in either direction. It could be going up, so here's a second fret of my fifth string on the guitar. If I go up a half step, I go to the third fret. If I go down a half step, I go to the first fret. Very simple. So if that's a half step, then what's a whole step? Obviously it's two frets. So if I start on the second fret of the fifth string, and somebody asks you to go up a whole step, they want you to go to the fourth fret. Back to my original second fret note. And then if I go a whole step down from there, I only have one fret left. So what do? I go to the open string. So the open string, we call it the open string, but it's really what's referred to as zero fret. So if this is our first fret of the instrument, or whatever instrument you're playing, banjo, ukulele, whatever, behind the nut of the instrument, right here, this white piece that's cut, that's called zero fret, and that's where the open string is really vibrating from. Okay? So once you know that, it's a matter of knowing how is your instrument tuned. I assume you know that. If you don't know that, I'm sure you can find that information very easily. On the guitar, we name the strings from the lowest string up to the highest string as strings 6 through 1. So the sixth string is an E note, fifth string is an A, fourth string is a D, third string is a G, second string is a B, first string is another E. Okay? So that little sequence of musical alphabet that I showed you yesterday, now we're going to practice doing that. But before we do that, you need to understand when we change letters going through the scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, there's two sets of letters where there is only a movement of a half step, and all the other letters are whole steps. And you might remember this if you've ever had piano lessons, and I'm going to show this to you on my little virtual keyboard here on my iPad. Okay, so the iPad didn't work out for my keyboard demonstration, so I'm going to go to a keyboard online. I was holding the iPad in front of the computer and it was kind of shaking a little bit while I was trying to play it. Not the best solution. So here's an online keyboard. So the main thing you notice about the layout of the keyboard is there's a series of 2 black keys and 3 black keys. If you've ever taken piano lessons, the first note you learn typically is called middle C. It's to the left of the second black key on the left here. Okay? So the white keys are called natural notes. The black keys are sharps and flats. We're mostly going to focus on the natural notes. So if this is C, as you know from the musical alphabet lesson, going backwards from C or descending, the next note is B, and the next note is A of the white keys, the beginning of our musical alphabet. Notice between A and B, there's a black key. What that means is that distance from A to B is a whole step. How that translates to your fretted instrument is it means you need to move 2 frets to go from A to B. Okay, so A to B is a whole step. B to C, you notice there's no black key there. Therefore, that movement is a half step. That is one of the exceptions you want to absolutely memorize. B to C is a half step. C going to D is a whole step because there's a black key in between those 2 notes. D to E is also a whole step. E to F, you'll notice there is no black key. Therefore, that movement is a half step. On your fretted instrument, you'll only move by 1 fret. F to G. Whole step, G to A. Whole step, A to B. Whole step, and B to C again, just like in the lower part of the keyboard, is a half step because there's no black key between them. So this is important to just solidly memorize these two exceptions. E and F and B and C are half steps. Think of a saying that you'll remember that. For example, Ethel and Fred, Bonnie and Clyde. Whatever makes you remember that, whatever works. So one thing about the keyboard, it's a great visual tool because, you know, we have all this black and white keys laid out very easily. The thing about the guitar or any fretted instrument with multiple strings, it's basically like having a multi-dimensional keyboard. The keyboard is really one dimension. So on a fretted instrument, like say a ukulele with 4 strings, or that's not the best example, let's say a guitar, because the ukulele has that high string tuning, and a banjo as well. The lowest string is a keyboard from here to here. The next string is a second dimension of a keyboard here. The next string is another keyboard here. The next one, and so it's this multi-layered tier of keyboards. So if it's a guitar, you have 6 dimensions you have to deal with. So that's why learning the fretboard of the guitar and theory on the guitar can be a little daunting at first, but you can do it. Just do 1 dimension at a time. So if I go back to the guitar as an illustration, and of course this is all true on any fretted stringed instrument. If I play that 5th string again on the guitar, this string, that's an A note. The A is physically located back here, behind the nut. What is my next note after A in the musical alphabet? B. If you've done your homework, you know that. How far is it from A to B? Is it one of those exceptions? Am I trying to get from E to F or B to C? No. Therefore, it's a whole step. So what do? I move 2 frets. Here's my 0 fret. I go to the 1st fret, 2nd fret. That's where B is located. Okay? What's the next musical note in the alphabet? C. How far is it? Is it a half step or whole step? Is it one of those exceptions of E and F and B and C? Yes, it is. Therefore, I just move 1 fret, which is a half step. So from B to C is the 2nd fret to the 3rd fret on the 5th string. And you may notice if you know your C chord, you're like, oh, that's the bass note of my C chord. No wonder, it's called C. Let's keep going. We're on C. What's the next note in the alphabet? D. Is it a half step or whole step? It's not E and F, and it's not B and C. Therefore, it's a whole step. So C to D is 2 frets. C to D. D to E. That's not one of those exceptions either. D to E is 5th fret to 7th fret on the guitar, on the 5th string. E to F, is that one of those exceptions? Yes, indeed it is. So therefore, I only move 1 fret. So the 8th fret is an F note. Okay, let me get a little closer so you can see the rest of the string. So now I'm on F. How far to G? Is it one of those exceptions? No. Therefore, I go a whole step. There's G on the 10th fret of the A string. G to A. Is that one of those exceptions of E and F and B and C? No, it's not. So therefore, I go 2 more frets, a whole step. That's a high A note. That's an octave higher than the open string. So that's why on your many guitars, you'll see at the 12th fret, 2 dots. It's telling you you're starting at the octave. You're starting that system of half steps and whole steps all over again. Okay? So I really recommend you try this up 1 string. Try to go all the way to the starting note from the open note to the octave. If that seems like a bit much, just go maybe the first 5 frets of whatever your instrument is. Because if you mostly just play down here for now, this will be most useful to learn this area, the names of those notes. But eventually, and I encourage you to do it if you have time, do the entire length of the string. So how do you reinforce them? You just simply recite them over and over again. You just start with A, and you say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. It's also a good idea to recite the whole steps and half steps. A to B, whole step. B to C, half step. C to D, whole step. D to E, whole step. E to F, half step. F to G, whole step. G to A, whole step. Okay? And obviously, do this on different strings of your instrument. And this takes some time, so, you know, maybe just in 1 week, just really nail down one string so you know it inside out. Then also practice them descending, going down, like we practiced the musical alphabet yesterday. So play the high A at the 12th fret. Drop down a whole step to G. Go down a whole step to F. Half step to E, just 1 fret lower at the 7th fret. Whole step to D. Whole step to C. Half step to B, right? Because that's one of the exceptions. Doesn't matter whether you're going forward or backward. And open A. 5th string open. Okay? Then quiz yourself. Call out a name of the musical alphabet. D. B. E. High A. F. And so on. Okay? Then you might practice the exercise we talked about with doing the scale in thirds. Okay? So if you start on A, what's a third higher than A? C. So go from A, go to your C note, recite it. You have to really drill it in. You want it to be second nature. From C, we'll drop back to the B, which is the note we skipped. What's a third up from B? We skip the C, we go to D. B to D. And if we drop back to the C, we jump up a third to the E, and so on up the string. Okay? So that's just, you know, mixing it up like that is real important. Don't worry about what technique should I use with the left hand. Should I use just one finger? Should I use one finger per fret? That's beyond the scope of these videos. This is just, you know, finding your way around the instrument, really, pretty much. Okay? And let's do one more string just for example's sake. So let's do the G string, because that you'll have that on the banjo, of course. You don't have an A string on the banjo unless you tune it somewhat differently. So the G string on the guitar is the 3rd string open. Where's the G really located? It's located at 0 fret back here. Next note in the scale is what? A. How far is it to A? It's a whole step because it's not E and F or B and C. So therefore G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half step. That's one of the exceptions. C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F is a half step. F to G is a whole step at the 12th fret. Okay? And one thing about the 12th fret, whenever you divide a vibrating string exactly in half, you get the same note an octave higher. And that is what the 12th fret is. You can't see my whole guitar in this little thing here, but this is exactly the vibrating length, half of the length of the string, right where the fret vibrates the string from. Okay? So I think that's probably enough. Just try to absorb that. Take it slow. And like I said, if you don't want to cover the whole guitar, it's perfectly fine. Maybe just cover the first 5 frets. That would be really useful. If you're going to give priority to bass strings versus high strings, I recommend you start on the bass strings of whatever your instrument is, because your chords are going to be built from those bass strings. And I think you'll get a clear understanding of now how the chords are laid out. And that will be in the next few video lessons. We'll talk about how are chords created, how they lay out on a stringed instrument, why are they major, why are they minor, why are they diminished, and so on. So that's it for today. And everyone, take good care of yourself. See you next time.